They say we should have known better than to fall so deep down into this rabbit hole we found. And I was thinking,
hi, this is Nico. You're listening to my Dad Fall, also known as the White Rabbit, and James Jardine on the one and only Down the Security Rabbit Hole podcast. Buckle up and enjoy.
deep into this pool of regrettable situations. Pitch black, think back to the last time that we
were happy. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome down to Security, your rabbit hole friends, to another edition of the Down to Security Rabbit Hole podcast. I'm going to tell you, this is a kind of a fanboy episode. We've got a great guest for you. Jim's riding shotgun. And as you guys may have heard on this show, I have stickers. Doug, I'm hand delivering this one to, I think, Augusta, because that would just make for a much better story than putting it in the mail. But folks, if you want a sticker, pick an episode, repost it to your network. Let me know, give me an address, and I will send you a sticker. No charge, no fee. Stick it on your friend's forehead, on your kids, on your car, on your laptop, probably. And yeah, so lots of stickers to give away. All right, let's get this show on the road. Wow. All right, so Jim, we are missing James, but we have somebody with that's gonna be pretty awesome.
Yes, and it's official. I'm the wingman today. I'm really looking forward to it. You are,
and I'm gonna have to get that. My kids are gonna have to fix up that intro because we're gonna have to add you into it now. Because
wow, that's a badge of honor right there. I'll take that all day long. That's amazing.
All right, let's welcome our guest, Mr. Doug Burks. Doug, how you doing?
I'm doing great. I really appreciate the invitation to be a part of the show.
From across the state of Georgia.
That's right. I've lived here all my life. I love Georgia. It's a great place to be. We're talking about Augusta, and I've lived here all my life. Back when I was growing up, it was a sleepy little town, but we're now kind of one of the homes of cyber when it comes to what we're doing here at Fort Eisenhower and Georgia Cyber Center and lots of other things. So I love Augusta. I love Georgia. I love the Southeast. It's a great place to be.
And I hear there's golf there every once in a while.
There have been rumors of this little golf tournament, and yeah. So if we weren't known for cybersecurity, then we're definitely known for golf. This little Masters golf tournament for sure.
All right, so everybody probably already knows who you are, but I'm going to ask for an intro anyway. Because for those that are either they've learning this industry and are like 7 minutes in, or have been living in a place where there's no internet or anything, then they might have not known you. But tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
So I'm Doug Burks. I'm the founder and CEO of Security Onion Solutions. We are a cybersecurity company that provides a free and open platform by defenders for defenders. So we build this platform that allows you to monitor your network, monitor your endpoints, bring all of that data back and do your threat hunting, do your incident response, do all of your case management, all in one easy to use interface that we built. And like I mentioned before, it's by defenders for defenders. The vast majority of our employees were previous defenders. And so, we eat our own dog food or drink our own champagne, however you want to phrase that, in terms of building the platform that we always wanted as a defender that no other company delivered for us. And, it's been a strange and interesting journey over the many years of my career. And, happy to kind of go back to the past and kind of talk through all that if you're interested.
Yeah, but free, you say?
Yeah, so our core platform is free and open. Anybody can download it. So the way that we as a business function around that free and open platform is we offer training, we offer professional services, we offer turnkey appliances. That's both hardware appliances and cloud-based appliances. And back in July, we announced a new business offering, and that's Security Onion Pro. That's a new set of enterprise features on top of that free and open platform that comes with an enterprise license. So we've got lots of different ways for folks to kind of try before you buy. Start with that free and open platform, do a proof of concept on some old retired hardware. And lots of folks, get very quick value out of doing that. And if that, suits your fancy and you're looking to really up your game, to an enterprise level, we've got that training, professional services, turnkey appliances, and Security Onion Pro to really take you to the next level.
I imagine over the years, you've had your share of competitors, but I told you before we started recording, I like to, if you're going to go look up a product or a company, you figure out just who the industry thinks they are. You do a quick Google search for them. And for you, you've got Palo coming for you. You got SentinelOne coming for you. You've got 3 companies I have never heard of coming for you, which I guess is a great spend of ad dollars. And then the usuals, right? The endpoint companies, the MDR, EDR, XDR, OMG, BBQ, GTFO, the rest of those. How did you? Let's take a I guess a gander through history. How did you get this thing started? Like, did you just one day wake up and go, I want to create a security product that's going to be the competitor to literally everything out there?
No, that's really not how it started at all. If we go back to the very, very beginning, I got my first computer when I was like 6 years old. I got a Commodore 16 and I hooked it up to the TV, and I was just instantly hooked on programming and the kind of power that you could wield as a 6-year-old, And so I kind of taught myself how to program. And when I was in middle school, a family friend said, "Hey, Doug, you're into computers, right?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, you need to read this book." And I said, "What is it?" He said, "It's called The Cuckoo's Egg by Cliff Stoll." And so as a middle schooler, who did not enjoy reading, I stayed up all night long reading this book because I simply could not put it down. For those of you who haven't read it, I mean, that's your assignment. You need to go and read this book, right? But it's the true story of Cliff Stoll, who caught this German hacker breaking into United States government systems, stealing information and selling it to the Russian KGB. This was about, the late 80s, the height of the Cold War. And so, here's this world of computers that I love, but now you're telling me that there's good versus evil inside the computer. And that to me was just the coolest thing. And, right. But as exciting as that was, it was like, well, there really was no cybersecurity industry. And that was kind of why the book was so important, because Cliff he invented all of these tools and techniques really kind of out of necessity, because you couldn't just go and buy a tool set. And, so me reading it as a middle schooler, I wasn't really imagining that I could do that as a career, because that wasn't really a defined career path at the time. So I went through high school and, I started college at Augusta College, as it was called back in the day. And I got my computer science degree, and we didn't really have any real cybersecurity classes. Because still the industry was still kind of in its infancy, and it was still kind of growing and maturing. And so when I finished my computer science degree, I got really focused on, okay, what can I learn about cybersecurity? Because I was doing all these things in my day job. I was a sysadmin, I was a network engineer, I ran the firewalls, I ran the switches and routers and email systems and database. I did some programming, all these different things. But what I was really passionate about was, hey, this cybersecurity industry is starting to take off. Like, that's what I really want to do. I want to be Cliff Stoll. I want to catch bad guys. And, through the course of being a sysadmin, obviously I had handled some security incidents just as part of my job, because we didn't have a dedicated security team. And so I got really focused on cybersecurity and what's the best way to catch a bad guy and monitor your network and monitor your endpoints and do all the things that we have to do as defenders. And so kind of fast forward to 2008, I was in an organization where we were basically a 2-man security team defending a 3,000 person organization. So as you can imagine, we were a little busy, right?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah,
Sounds
right. I was
about
gonna say
right.
that sounds about right.
Yep. And, to top it all off, we were, kind of a dying company in a dying industry, and we didn't have a whole lot of money, right? So I'm kind of stitching together free and open source components to try to build a solution to try to get us the visibility that we needed. And, I'd been a part of kind of open source communities since 1997. And, so I knew there was a lot of different open source components out there. But what struck me was, I handled an incident one time where, the attacker broke into our network. And because I was doing full packet capture, I could go through my PCAP and I could see, looking at the attacks that he was sending, I could look at his user agent strings, and I could tell that he was using Backtrack Linux, which is now called Kali Linux, right? And I thought, these bad guys, they've got Backtrack Linux. They've got this platform that's already built. That's all the tools are already compiled. They're already configured. It's ready out of the box. And we as blue teamers, we as defenders, we didn't really have the equivalent of that. And I was like, that's fundamentally unjust.
Yeah.
And so it was at that moment in time that, I decided, okay, it's my mission in life to help rebalance that equation so that defenders, defenders of all budgets or no budgets at all can at least have a fighting chance to catch the bad guys that are breaking into their networks.
I love that.
So
I love that.
It's amazing.
Yeah. And in 2008, I started building Security Onion, and it took several months to complete that first version. I put it out in 2009, and nothing really happened at first because back in 2009, I was a nobody. Nobody had heard of my name, and so you put something out on the internet and you have kind of wild dreams of, we'll have 1 million downloads overnight. Well, that didn't happen, right? But it's like we were talking about before, like the 15-year thing, right? It really takes like this long-term strategic planning and grinding it out day by day. And to further that point, we recently celebrated 10 years as a company, right? And so our theme for this year as a company has been, it takes 10 years to be an overnight success, because I kind of realized that, right? A wise man said that a long time ago. And I think there's a lot of wisdom in that statement, because, I kind of learned from starting the open source project in 2008, right? Things didn't happen overnight. It took a long time for us to get to 100,000 downloads, to 500,000 downloads, to 1 million downloads. And so eventually, fast forward to 2014, that's when I started the company, Security Onion Solutions, to provide the products and services around that platform. I knew when I was taking that leap of faith in 2014 that it was going to be a long road, and that I was going to have to, grind on a daily basis, and I was going to have to push through the dip, when times were getting tough. And so, here we are 10 years later as a company. We've continued to grow every single year. We've been profitable every single year as a company. We've increased our revenue every single year as a company. So, by all accounts, we are successful. And, as you said, there's lots of competitors out there that have us in their crosshairs. And, we compete against the big boys, and we compete quite favorably. So I'm very proud of, what we've done over the past few years to get back to what I was saying before, to rebalance that equation for defenders.
That's fantastic. Let me ask you, because this is, and Jim, I'll shut up for a minute, let you, I'm sure you've got a couple too, but I want to ask, because this is important in a world where I've been to RSA, been to Black Hat last several years consistently. And this year, I did the walk around episode and talked to a couple of people, and it's like there's more money than ever being poured into our niche, right? Into our trade. Venture capital money, private equity money, just money coming out of our ears. And yet the product we produce, not to call our own baby ugly, but maybe you want to put a mask on that baby. We're not super
ugly adjacent.
Yeah. Right. Yes. With all this money in the industry, with all this talent and all this hoopla and ballyhoo from the booths at all these conferences, all these conferences every day of the week, there's a security conference somewhere. There's tools, there's all this stuff, and we keep getting popped, right? We can't seem to spend ourselves out of this, and you're doing this on a free platform. The way I see it is you're sort of like, poke. Like, yeah, you guys have just secured $125 million investment, and I'm going to kick your butt with my modest team and none of that. How does that?
Yeah.
How does that work? I mean, it seems so counterintuitive that in a world that's driven by just massive cash infusions and all that, that you're 25 years in, and going strong and growing. That's kind of against the grain here, bud.
It absolutely is. And so, when we go back to 2014, so at the time, I worked at Mandiant. I was the Deputy Chief Security Officer. I worked for my hero and role model, Richard Baitlick. And, I had the best job I ever had, the best company I ever worked for. And, I was very proud of what we were doing at Mandiant, and we got acquired by FireEye. So all of a sudden we were a much larger company. I think when I hired on at Mandiant, we were about 300 employees. When FireEye acquired us, that was about 3,000 employees. And so, one of the things that I decided to do when I kind of took this leap of faith to start this company was to try to do something different. And, that was to really kind of take it as a personal challenge to see, well, how far can you actually take a company that's bootstrapped? And, without taking on investment, at least in the early days, we haven't taken on investment, thus far, not ruling it out for the future, but, to date, we haven't taken on investors, and that's given us this freedom. That's given us this independence, and that's given us this control over our own destiny to really be focused on mission and really be focused on what matters to us as defenders, and to really be focused on doing what's right for our customers and our community. And I think we've been tremendously successful with that. Now, because we haven't taken on investors, that means that, we can only grow organically. We can only grow as our revenue allows us to grow. And so that's limited our growth, sure, but that's okay. We're very focused, we're very efficient. And, we talk to folks all the time that are amazed at, what we're able to output with such a small team. But that's because we are very much focused on the mission itself. And we're kind of ignoring all the superfluous stuff that we find that you kind of alluded to in the industry. And we're really focusing on fundamentals. We're focusing on execution. We're focusing on regular release cadence and delivering features every single time that, actually make a difference in the lives of defenders. And we're not out there chasing every single fad that comes up. So we're really trying to, be as effective and efficient as possible with the resources that we have. And I think we've done a tremendous job at that. And, hats off to my team, because they are, they're investing blood, sweat, and tears in each and every release that we do. And, we're in the midst of putting out a release right now. We're finishing it up, and, super excited to get that release out the door and the new features that we've added there. So, I'm very pleased with, the fact that you can take a small crew of scrappy folks that are willing to duke it out with the big boys and not get intimidated, right? So it's kind of a David versus Goliath story. And, in many cases, we're getting out there and we're we're doing what we need to do to help defenders defend themselves.
One of the things that you said something earlier that really spiked with me was like, with Backtrack, and before then there was hacker tools were free. They didn't come with the man page, so you had to compile and figure it out. Then it became Backtrack. And then the, introduction of Metasploit kind of changed the dynamic, right? So now you have this entire, I will just call it free economy, if that makes sense, of, bad guy capability, right? And as people were stepping up trying to create a solution, it was always a dollar sign on the other end, right? So you had kind of this path of experts. And then, of course, I'm not going to blame anybody for trying to do that, right? No
Sure.
fault whatsoever, okay? But it just show where your trajectory took a different path. And the fact that here you are still, and I would argue that clock started for you in 1997. Let's be honest, right? I think Raph alluded to that. But I think what's really fascinating is you're able to continue to develop this, and by not taking on, and this is no dig against VCs or whatever, but there's a tendency of not just trying to change the trajectory of the organization from a revenue and growth and profitability perspective, but they start getting into, well, they try to produce your product like a producer in Hollywood. You should really do this, and it should look this way, and it should have this color scheme, these logos, and it really should do this because your top 10, companies in the world want that feature. And I think Raph really hit the nail on the head with that component, because I think that's where it's defending is not always about, it's not always about making money. If that was the case, then, police officers would make a ton of money, right? You know what I'm saying? So I just find this entire thing absolutely fascinating, because I've been able to watch, this whole thing grow from the sidelines and think, man, if we could get more of that, right? But reality of it is the availability of technology to, bust into a bank, it just keeps growing and growing and growing, right? So it's just fascinating to me, Doug. I think it's really amazing that the team is just crunching away there. But I just find so much faith in that there's experts building tools for other experts, and it's not being necessarily influenced to the point you made a minute ago.
Yeah, it's I've seen lots of organizations that have, worked with VC and investors, and, they enable them to do really great things. You get a cash infusion, you can grow the team really big, and you can pull off some big things. So, I'm not saying that I'm rabidly against that kind of stuff, and I'm not poo-pooing anybody that's gone down that route, and I'm not ruling it out for us at some point in the future. But, as I said before, I in 2014, I really said, this is kind of a personal challenge. Let me just see how far can we actually take this on our own, bootstrapping it and just growing organically. And, I think that's, just one of those kind of personal goals thing of, let me see how far, back before I started a company, it was, let me see how far I can push my career, right? Let me see how far I can climb up the corporate ladder. And then it's, that was all about certifications and, teaching for SANS and doing other things. And then it was starting a company, and let's come up with some interesting goals, and let's see, how I can do against those goals. And, we've been very successful at that. And, but again, it's like, for me personally, money is a tool. It's not number one priority in life. You can do things with money. But, when I kind of think about, Stephen Covey and the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, begin with the end in mind. Like, if I look up, he's got it, he's pointing at it. One of those is begin with the end in mind, right? So when I think about the end of my life, the end of my career, like, what am I going to look back on as accomplishments, right? And so, I want to make sure that I'm a good husband, I'm a good father, I'm a good family man, and those things are very important to me. Money falls somewhere in that list of priorities, but it's not my number one priority, right? So I want to make sure that, at the end of my career, that, there are defenders that have done a better job of defending because we were out there, helping them along the way, even if they had, little to no budget. We're out there kind of filling in the gaps for them.
I love that. I love that answer. So
Yeah.
many people in our industry, and Jim, I'm sure you've seen this too, that run and chase the dragon, right? You from one job to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next, and you're, up in your salary, working those 60, 70-hour weeks. It breaks relationships. It breaks families. It breaks friendships. Hell, it breaks people's health.
Mhm.
And
Sure.
for some reason, the profession we've chosen, much like police work, much like similar things, drives people that, and I don't mean this in the way it's going to sound, but don't know when to quit. Like sometimes you just got to walk away, like go home, like right. You're not going to solve the world's problems tonight. Go home. And I think you've adequately described how to get your priorities straight, frankly, and still have a successful company that, I mean, with all due respect, it's probably going to outlive you by quite a bit, which is like, that's the greatest testimonial to success you're going to get, right? Anything that outlives our lifetime and people are like, yes, this is still a thing. And the founder is gone. And that is amazing. So for that, for no other reason, that is an awesome reason. Hey, because we're gonna run up on time in about 10 minutes here. I want to ask. So you started this as what did it start as from a feature set? Where did it grow, and where's it going next?
So in 2008, that very first version that I built was really focused on network monitoring, network security monitoring. And if you were in the industry back in that time, you're very familiar with Snort, and that was kind of the de facto standard for intrusion detection. But at the same time, there was another project called Squeal, which was Bam Bisher's project for taking not only Snort to produce IDS alerts, but also doing full packet capture, doing other kinds of data to really surround those alerts with context. And so that was one of the things I mentioned. Richard Batley before. He was very heavily involved with the Squeal project, and he was kind of my hero and role model when it comes to several of the books that he wrote, and I followed all of his blog entries and things like that. And so I was enamored with the Squeal project, and so that was kind of the centerpiece of Security Onion, because I had been on all of these kind of open source community mailing lists, and I saw folks that were really kind of struggling with, how do I compile this component, and how do I satisfy the dependencies for this component? Once I get that done, how do I integrate it with this component? And I'm sitting back thinking, if you look across the industry, there's all these guys that are defenders that are spending all their time compiling tools and configuring them and troubleshooting them, rather than actually doing their real job of catching bad guys. And that's, again, fundamentally unjust. And so that's really what that first version of Security Onion was focused on, was, okay, if Squeal is really the best thing that we have in 2008 to monitor network traffic, generate alerts, give us the context that we need around those alerts to triage and do what we need to do for the incident response process, let's make it as easy as possible, so that it's install this simple Linux distribution, run through a simple setup wizard, and a few minutes later, next finish, any old Windows admin off the street can now monitor network traffic coming from a tap or a span port.
That's a big deal.
That's what
you're really downplaying that, right? I mean, again, just kind of like replay it against that opposite view is, again, early hacker tools, you had to compile like crazy. And in early penetration testing days, you always felt like you were just compiling tools all day. And then came but you could shift that all the way into the early 2000s, like you say in 2008, well into the 2000 teens, let's be honest, where you want to go, oh, look, there's Snort, there's Squeal, or maybe the early days of ElkStack, right? And you were just constantly compiling and trying to troubleshoot just to get the thing to run.
Yeah,
right? Just to get it to run. And so
exactly.
Think about all the effort. I mean, I'm not trying to get super crazy here, but think of all the effort that the existence of Security Onion has reduced to get quickly to target that, right? So it's a very, very, I'm sorry for interruption, but I just wanted to say is that you just kind of zip right past that like it was no big deal. And that's a huge deal, right? Because you're right. I mean, if you're sitting there, it's okay to geek around the tool. I'm not saying don't know your junk, but what I'm saying is don't necessarily get caught just trying to figure out how to make something work. And that's where, security on, I think that was a tipping point, that vision that you had.
That's a great point. And I think it was Andy Hertzfeld, who was like an Apple employee from the early days of Apple. And he was talking about when they were building maybe one of the first Macintoshes. And, Steve Jobs was complaining about the time that it took for it to boot. It was like 30 seconds or a minute or something. And he was like, that's way too long. You got to get it down. And the engineers were like, well, what's it going to matter if it's, 30 seconds versus 45 seconds? Like, what's the big deal? But Steve Jobs being Steve Jobs, he said, look, do you know how many millions of folks are going to use this computer? And if it's 50 million people and you can save them 5 seconds of every day, he did the back of the envelope calculation. And he's like, you are saving 20,000 lives, right? That's the way that you look at it, is you take all that time that would have been wasted, but you're saving that many lives. So, I hope that defenders can realize that, back in the old days when we were taking duct tape and barbed wire, we were wasting our lives. We were not able to be as efficient as we could be, by leveraging technology to its fullest extent and, allowing, the advent of ISO images with precompiled tools and things like that to really help defenders be more effective and efficient. So that's really kind of where we started, was network security monitoring. I realized pretty quickly that more and more of our network traffic was going to become encrypted as time went on. And so I knew that we couldn't stay with network forever. We needed to make sure that we were equally as strong on the endpoint side. And so, 2010, 2011 started working on integrating more endpoint stuff. And so, to this day, we make sure that we're equally as strong on the network side and the host-based side. So we don't have blind spots in our telemetry, right? And so, we've worked tirelessly over the years to make sure that we're keeping up with the latest and greatest, that we're on the bleeding edge of what defenders need. You mentioned the elastic stack. And so several years ago, we embarked on a multi-year journey to integrate the elastic stack into our platform. And so, now when you download Security Onion, it's a much larger ISO image than it used to be back in the day, but it's a lot more powerful at the same time, right? Because you've got not only Suricata for your network monitoring, you've got Elastic Agent for your endpoint monitoring, you've got the Elastic Stack on the back end so that you can slice and dice all that data. We've built our own web interfaces for alerting, for dashboards, for case management, for grid management. How do you manage a distributed deployment of hundreds of sensors across your enterprise? And so all of that's integrated right into that ISO image. And so, it's essentially a security operations center in a box, right? And so, that's kind of where we are today. And we're constantly looking out for, where do we need to go tomorrow? And so, obviously folks are always asking about things like machine learning and AI. And we've actually got a new feature in the works that we may or may not be announcing at our annual Security Onion conference coming up next month. So I don't want to spoil anything there, but we might have an interesting feature that we'll be announcing next month or so.
Awesome. You know what I find interesting, and this is just sort of my observation on it, particularly in the endpoint space where the battle has been over new and interesting ways to prevent attackers, to identify threats, to pull signal off the machine. Your focus is on the data and the detection, right? Because these systems, whether it's the network itself via packets, whether it's the endpoint itself, the endpoint is happy to give you tremendous amounts of data about what's happening. at the memory level, at the process level, in the on disk, like all these things that are happening. And it doesn't take, like, what I'm trying to say is when you're looking at defending, it doesn't take like all these extra features that AI can do, magical solve this thing for you. You just have to make the signal more visible and blank out and blur out the noise, right? And that's what I find you guys do really well, is you can help like quickly give me clarity. What is happening out there, and what shouldn't be happening? What's the weird? And from a defender's perspective, boy, that's a lot of power to have for no cost.
Yeah, it's when I think back to the good old days, it was you were looking for a needle in a haystack, and of course nowadays you're looking for a needle in a needle stack, right?
Yeah.
And so you're absolutely right that it's all about separating the signal from the noise, and it's at the end of the day, it's all about the data, and it's about collecting the right kinds of data and presenting it in the right way so that defenders can make sense of it, and that's the really difficult job is, especially as the cybersecurity industry continues to grow and we have such a need and a demand for bringing new folks into the industry, and they don't have the benefit of all of our gray hairs and all of the years of experience that we have. And so how do we kind of usher in that next generation of defenders? So we have to figure out a way to make it easier for them to get up to speed on, okay, here's this alert and I need to triage this alert. Is it a true positive or a false positive? Do I care about it? Do I need to engage incident response on it? And, that goes for both the network side and the host-based side as well. And, so I think that, part of our success has been because we are a free platform. Anybody can download it and fire it up in their home lab, play with it on their home network, right? And that's a great way for folks to get started and get the kind of hands-on experience that they need before they ever walk into a real corporate enterprise with real bad adversaries. Because otherwise, if you're just trying to take some classes somewhere without any real kind of real world experience, well, there's going to be a gap there. But the more that we can really kind of lower the barriers to entry for new folks in the industry, the better off we'll all be.
Yeah, I'm gonna. That's a boy. I wish we had more time. But I will run this just a couple more minutes to pull that point. We were just talking about the other day, and this is a soapbox I'm trying not to get caught up in because I know it's going to generate some vibrant discussion. Let's call it. We're taking as a profession, we're trying to teach people from a book what cybersecurity is when we should be doing apprenticeships, right? The way plumbers and electricians do, because you can't book learn your way into this thing. You just can't. This is just raw experience, and the books sort of help guide you kind of in concept, but the experience is what really makes you in this industry. And for that, I want to say thanks on behalf of everybody who's, including myself, who's downloaded it, played with it, put it out on network, gone, oh shit, and and then spent the day trying to chase whatever the hell that was. So I wish you lots of luck, a good bit of skill, continued success, and keep growing it, keep on the path that you're going on, honestly, because you're doing something right. You've got the right drive. I think your motivations are about as good as you're going to get out there, right? For somebody that's running a company, your priorities seem to be well in hand. The company is growing. The product is ubiquitous. Everybody knows it. As a vendor myself, I see it all the time. I see you guys all the time. And more than once I've been like, oh, all right, that guy I could lose to. and now I get to talk to you. So I want to say thanks. And hey, thanks for joining the show. Here's to another 25 years of a good run, man.
I appreciate that. It's been a blessing and a privilege to do this, and I couldn't do anything else, and I love what I do. They say find something that you love doing and you'll never work a day in your life, and that's the way I feel about it. And I love what I do. I really enjoy it, and I'm just I'm a computer nerd who grew up on the dirt road, and for me to be able to contribute to support our military, to help defenders in the corporate space in just about every single industry vertical that there is, that's tremendously gratifying. So it's been a blessing and a privilege, and I appreciate the opportunity to be on your show, and thank you so much.
That was awesome. All right, we'll end it there. Folks, thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed Doug's story. And if you, for some reason, don't know what Security Onion is, just Google Security Onion. So I'd say Google Security Onion Solutions to see what the competitors think, and then go to securityonionsolutions.com and go check them out. I'm happy to evangelize that for you, Doug. It's a good thing to do. It's a good place to be. I'm excited for you, and maybe we'll get you back on. And I think I'm driving to Augusta at some point. We're gonna go deliver a sticker, and maybe we'll go sit and watch some golf being played. Or maybe, do you play golf?
I do. Do you?
I mean, kind of. Listen, early
to
morning.
be clear, I'm not
time.
any good at it. I just enjoy swinging a golf club.
Yeah, what I play is more like hit and fetch. I'll get a good drive. I'll get on the green in 2, and then like 9 putt.
Well, I play Army golf. Left, right, left, right, left, right.
I love it. I love it. Jen, you got to make that drive. We'll take a picture of all of us on the golf, that famous golf course there. All right, Doug, thanks for being on the show. Jim, thanks for co-piloting. Folks, thank you so much for listening. We'll catch you guys another time, another place on another Down the Security Rabbit Hole podcast. Check this episode out on YouTube. As the kids say, smash that subscribe button and that like button. I don't know. I'm not